Good morning or good evening, everyone. We are coming to you live from the besieged Gaza with more breaking news. We have with us in Gaza our correspondent there, Wafa Al Udaini. Before we go to Wafa, so very quickly, we just want to update you that Gaza has been bombed for the eighth day straight. Unfortunately, very little of that is being covered in mainstream media and sadly in many Arab media as well. However, here at the Palestine Chronicle, Palestine for us is, of course, a priority, and exposing Israeli crimes in Gaza is our top priority. So let's go directly to Gaza and talk to our correspondent there, Wafa Al Udaidi. First, Wafa, thank you for joining us. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah,
Uh,
this update
can
here
you
in
tell us
Gaza,
can you tell us what is happening in Gaza at
that
the moment?
Gaza is under.
We can hear you, Wafa. Go ahead.
Sorry,
We can hear you. Go ahead and tell us what is happening in Gaza at the moment.
can right now is for this night is the ninth night. Israeli occupation warplanes just bombed Gaza for the ninth night so far. They said that they responded to the balloons and incendiary balloons that fired from Gaza into Israel. And indeed, the Palestinian youth who actually expressed their anger against the occupation authorities' policies against the people of Gaza and the crippling siege here in Gaza. So they are just expressing their anger by sending or launching incendiary balloons that set fire into large areas in Israel. And just a few minutes from now, so many balloons were fired from Gaza, and right now there are drones over Gaza sky. So maybe this will be again the ninth month, the ninth night here in Gaza that Israeli occupation will attack. Um, as you see here, the people that just that Gaza also the only power plant where was shut has shut down yesterday, so because due to the lack of fuel. So the people of Gaza only have 4 hours of electricity. So you can find here so many of the people here just in Gaza Shore. So many are enjoying the beach because there is no electricity in their homes because it's too hot because we are in summer, so it is so hot here, and everybody here is in the shore, in Gaza shore, as you see. Uh, um, yeah, so right now this is the situation until now. No electricity, and the drones is over Gaza sky. It will be another night of attacking by the Israeli drones. But the people here just live randomly, as you see, just act as as every day. They want to live. They want to. The life goes on here, and they are enjoying the shore here in Gaza.
You know,
So this is the
Wafa,
yeah.
Wafa, yesterday, two
Yeah.
sites were bombed in Gaza. Do you know what are the nature of the Israeli targets? What are they bombing exactly?
Yeah, actually, the Israeli target resistance sites and observation posts, agricultural lands, empty land. They just bombed these areas several times. Um, to put the pressure into the resistance here to stop the firing of balloons and the stuff. And actually, while they bombed these sites, the resistance sites and the observation posts, so many of the houses here in Gaza got damaged, got partly damaged because of these airstrikes. Um, yeah, and just the night before yesterday, there were a pregnant woman got injured and two children as well got injured during the Israeli airstrike on a site here in the middle of Gaza City.
Okay, Wafa,
Yeah,
please stay with us. Thank you very much for this update. Stay with us. Please do not go anywhere. If our producer could kindly upload the most recent video of the bombardment from last night.
yeah. بس الكهرباء قاطعة انت جاي على هذا عشان الكهرباء مقطوعة. تحكي لي.
Wafa, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm just talking to some people here, to some children who are enjoying the sea. They told me that we are here near Gaza shore because the electricity cut, electricity black out, and with because it's to enjoy the scene as well. Can I ask them some questions?
Well, there are children, so we have to be quite careful. With what we ask them. I'm just glad that they are still finding a sense of joy during these difficult times. And sadly, I mean, these children, judging by their ages, they were all born after the siege, unfortunately. So they really no other alternative, or they understand that this is life the way that it should be, because they've never experienced anything but siege and war and more siege and more war. So But just from what you sense, you are talking to people in Gaza, Wafa, what do the Israelis want? I mean, yes, of course, they want to put pressure on the resistance in Gaza, put more pressure on the people in Gaza. But they have been doing this for over a decade now, and they haven't really achieved anything. Is there anything in particular that they are trying to achieve during this particular bout of violence?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, actually, you know that they closed the only commercial crossing, and so that we have a lack of fuel, and they bomb Gaza every night. So they do all of these things in order to put a pressure on the Palestinian resistance here in Gaza to stop sending balloons, to give up, to just commit to the ceasefire agreement without.
We lost our correspondent in Gaza, Wafa Al Udaini. We will try to bring her back as soon as we can. Let me quickly go to our editor, Romana Rubio, um, to see, just to listen to our latest report from Gaza. If you could just tell us what is the latest news that you have for us, Romana.
Yes, Ramzi. Hi, everybody. The news are the ones that Wafa Al-Udaini gave us this morning. Israel closed the Karam Abu Salem crossing, that is the only commercial crossing between Israel and the besieged Gaza Strip. And that's why the sole electricity plant in Gaza is not working due, of course, to the lack of fuel. So its population of over 2 million people currently receives only 4 hours of electricity per day. And also she told us that the Israeli Navy this morning chased Palestinian fishermen off the Gaza shores and opened fire at them because on Sunday, Israeli occupation authorities completely closed the Gaza Strip's fishing zone. But now I see that Wafa is back, so maybe her connection is better and she can tell us more about the news that she reported for us today.
Wafa, can you hear us?
Yeah. Actually, here some of the fishermen here told me that the Israeli Navy just fired at the fishermen here and chased their boats and leave them to leave the sea. And they are here, as you see. Those are fishermen who the Israeli Navy shot at them and asked them to get out of the sea. Yeah.
Yes, Wafa,
Yeah.
if you could talk to one of them, if they can introduce themselves and just let us know in more details about the kind of experiences that they have trying to make living within this very limited space and to be fired by the Israeli Navy if they have to try to do so.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want me to ask them?
Yes, if possible.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. Yeah. بس تعال هنا شوي. Yeah. Okay. شو اسمه؟ Yeah. His name is Fathi. He is a fisherman. قديش لك صياد؟ من since 25 years he used to work in fishing because it is his only living, yeah. طيب تحكي لي انه قبل شوي الرد طخ على الصيدة.
بطلع له برا وبرجع بطخ عليه وبحطوا ميه وبرجع.
طب ليش؟ طب هذا بيأثر على
كيف بدنا ناكل؟ كيف بدنا نشرب؟ لما البحر علينا بس عشان البحر علينا. لما البحر علينا كيف؟ واللي بمرق علينا مصطاد.
Okay, so he says that we just قديش عندك عائلتك قديش؟ Yeah, he and his eight, yeah, he and his eight children, the fishing man, used to work in fishing and feed his eight children and his wife. He lived in a rented house, and this is, so challenging for him because many times the Israeli Navy shot at them and asked them to flee the sea. So he returned to his family empty-handed, without any fish to sell, and then bring whatever he wants for his children. Mhm. He is saying that it's so hard here, and especially at this moment in Gaza. طب ايش في عندك رسالة معينة حابب توصلها؟
بس احنا بدنا نشوف احنا عشان الوضع
So we ask to the international community to intervene and stop the Israeli Navy from, chasing the fishermen and allow us to fish freely in the sea, and then we can make living for our families.
كنا زمان نعمل بنكون على الفاضي ليش ما فيش وده البحر يعني اذا عطى بناكل ما عطاش بناكلش كمان اليهود بنحكينا كمان طلعونا برا الله عليهم تقم منه.
Okay, so they said that whenever there is fish, whenever they have the opportunity to enter the sea and fish and bring fish, so they can feed their families. But whenever there is, they cannot bring any fish from the sea, so it means that they are not gonna, feed their families.
Wafa, if you
Okay,
could,
so
if you
yeah,
could ask them
yeah.
what was the distance, the nautical miles, the distance that Israel
Yeah.
has allowed fishermen to operate or to fish in recently. Now I know that the area is being shut down completely, but prior to
Yeah.
that, what was the limit?
يا قديش مساحة الصيد القتل المسموح فيها؟
10 كمان بس 10 كمان بس
10 ايش؟
10 كمان التطور هذا
يعني ايش هذا 10 جرامات؟ يا
اليوم بعد الاشياء كثيره كمان اليوم بعد الصيادين
Yeah, he just said that just very few meters, less than 6 meters, they enter the sea today, and then the Israeli Navy shot at them. And actually, مش سكر البحر. Yeah, this morning actually, the Israeli the Israeli authority actually this morning closed the sea completely, and they closed the sea completely. So I'm not sure because it is a little bit dark here. If you can see the Israeli Navy there, I'm not sure if you can see them. The light that in the sea. This is the Navy that the Israeli Navy that used to shoot at. It's dark right now, right?
No, we can actually see them. It's clear.
Yeah.
I remember last time in Gaza, when I saw the horizon, they were a bit further. It seems that they are getting closer and closer to the beach at this point.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much, Wafa. Thank you so much for taking the time and for being with us. If you kindly just hang in there, we are going to get back to you shortly.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Back to you, Rumana. I mean, it seems that there is a process of complete suffocation. Israel is up to something. Just looking at the Israeli media, for example, Benny Gantz, Netanyahu's deputy, had a message for Gaza conveyed by the Jerusalem Post here. He warned Palestinian groups in Gaza Strip on Wednesday against continuing to launch rockets and explosive aerial devices into Israel, hinting that the IDF could expand its targets. This is what Gantz has said. We know how to target not only buildings and infrastructure, but also those who act from them, he said during a meeting with local regional authority leaders from Gaza border communities, referring to the illegal Jewish settlements. Now, this message that was conveyed by Gantz was also conveyed by other Israeli leaders. They are sending a message. The latest exchanges came as Israel warned Hamas it was risking war by failing to stop fire balloons being launched across the border. Now, those of our viewers who are a little bit confused about what is going on with these fire balloons, since the last flare of violence a few months ago, Hamas was under the impression that there was an agreement that was reached through Egypt mediation, that would allow fishermen to access the appropriate distance in the sea that would allow them to fish. Farmers would be able to return to their farms that have been included in Israel's firing zone at the fence separating besieged Gaza from Israel. And the Kerem Salem Israeli checkpoint would be open for building material and such. Unfortunately, none of these conditions have taken place. In fact, Hamas has went as far as regulating the protests that were happening at the fence separating Gaza from Israel, in order for, because that was a condition that the Israelis had. And many Palestinians, especially within the civil society in Gaza, were not happy about that decision. But what Hamas has said, the Hamas discourse at the time was, we have to sacrifice our right to protest in order for us to ease the siege and not to give Israel the pretext to bomb Gaza and to take us into another war. And we know what wars have done to Gaza in recent years. Unfortunately, none of the Israeli promises or commitments under the Egyptian achieved truce have happened, and none of it was ever enforced. So Gaza is now suffering from its worst economic conditions in years. And not just that, something horrendous also happened recently, and that is the United Arab Emirates and Israeli deal. And that, in the eyes of Benjamin Netanyahu, has changed the nature of the conflict from land for peace into peace for peace, meaning that Israel will give Palestinians absolutely nothing, and they will get normalization and economic integration into the region with the Arabs. Of course, Gazans have been protesting en masse recently against this agreement. I think Israel wants to send a very strong message to Gaza that don't expect anything. The status quo would remain as it is. And of course, Hamas, the resistance, and other Palestinian groups, and all of Gazans are getting very agitated by all of this. It's extremely hot in Gaza. There is very little or no electricity whatsoever. The last electric plant has been shut down because there is no fuel. Attempts by Qatar to allow fuel into Gaza have failed. So Gaza is basically being pushed to its knees. And under these circumstances, Hamas has not prevented protesters from releasing fire balloons into Israel that have reportedly, per Israeli military claims, led to various fires in agricultural areas. Of course, did not injure anyone. These are the Israeli reports. That's what they are saying. Now, Israel is saying to Gaza, to Hamas, to the authorities there, we need to return back to the status quo, which is Gaza being in kind of this semi-state of starvation and suffocation, but without changing anything as far as the conditions prior to this latest bombardment is concerned. And I think it's going to be quite challenging because Netanyahu is now in a situation where he cannot appear weak within his government, cannot appear weak to Benny Gantz in particular, who seems to be extremely interested in a conflict in Gaza. He wants to give the impression that he is the strong Israeli leader who is able to protect Israel while Benjamin Netanyahu is weak. So both are now competing in terms of action and in terms of words. Who is going to be the harshest on Gaza? I think that if there is no serious intervention from outside forces to put pressure on Israel to respect previous agreements regarding the siege, we could find ourselves kind of delving back into a state of war. We know Israeli leaders don't have any particular boundaries when it comes to bombing Gaza. Romana, do you have any updates? We know that there was a United Nations school that has been bombed, and we are going to show a short video before you tell us more about the bombing of the school, which received very little media coverage. Unfortunately, of course, in the Palestine Chronicle, we were one of the first to report on the bombing of the school. Let's look at this video report. This gentleman is talking about the bombing of the school.
أبوي كان راح جدة ولا أخويا وبيوتنا خربت البيوت.
نطالب يعني وقف العدوان، كفي مآسي لقطاع غزة والحصار الموجود، وبنطالب يعني تحقيق دولي على كل الجرائم اللي بيستهدفها العدو. يعني أول امبارح استهدف مدرسة الوكالة، الذنب المدرسة الوكالة يضرب صاروخ استطلاع فيها حوالي 1500 شظية. الذنب المدرسة أطفال فيها. إحنا بنطالب طبعا الأمم المتحدة إنها يعني تجيب لنا حقوقنا إحنا كمدنيين، توقف معنا إحنا كمدنيين، إنه إحنا ما لناش ذنب يعني في اللي بيصير فينا، وإحنا ناس أمنين ما لناش في أي شيء.
What else do you have to tell us about the bombing of the UN school, and is there an investigation, Romana, regarding this issue?
There are no news about any investigation carried out for the school. The bombardment didn't happen last night. It happened some days ago, actually. As you said, there were, no reports on that on mainstream media. The part of the story that you told us is always hidden by mainstream media. And it's always difficult to assess the true damage done by these famous incendiary balloons that dominate the pages of mainstream media in the accounts of Gaza bombardments last week. The truth is these young people, as you said, are suffering maybe the worst economic crisis ever because COVID-19 had an impact on Gaza too. We reported on, the unemployment is really high now in Gaza. There is no electricity, there is no water. As we repeatedly said, 2020, which now is considered a bad year for everybody in the world, had already been deemed as by the United Nations as the year where the Gaza Strip would have become unlivable. And this is really like a territory that is unlivable. So these young people are protesting, and it is quite, shocking to see how mainstream media cover the news. It would be shocking if we were not used to that, unfortunately. Of course, the words that came from Wafa today, it was really strong, for example, to hear from the fishermen. We always report on the Palestinian fishermen being attacked, constantly attacked by the Israeli Navy, and to see actually the images of the Israeli Navy deployed in the Gaza Sea. So we are gonna, of course, cover the news from Gaza as much as we can, to give the other side of the story. That
Right, I agree. Just talking to the fishermen on the beach today, the very people who were fired on by the Israeli Navy, and seeing the Israeli Navy at the distance, kind of turning their flares, their lights on, preparing for a long night. That was particularly interesting. Just regarding the back to the bombing of the school that did not receive much coverage, neither in mainstream media nor sadly in Arab media. We know that Hamas and the authorities in Gaza condemned the damage caused to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency school in Gaza during an Israeli army airstrike. It appeared to be a missile hit the lower wall of the school. We are not clear about the nature of the damage. We know that UNRWA said in a statement that the quote Beach Co-Educational School D in Gaza was affected by an Israeli airstrike. Initial reports indicated that the device did not explode. School students were on the premises, but the school is now closed. The agency is awaiting the full report. Regarding the nature of the damage and the alleged and the unexploded ordinance. It added that it was waiting proper assessment of the situation before requesting accountability from those responsible. And judging by previous experiences, we know that there will be very little accountability. But what I think is really quite interesting is number one, the very little coverage that this story has received. It was kind of like a fleeting story reported in some Palestinian media, but also the fact that the children were actually on the premises of the school at the time. If we can imagine that an Israeli missile, if that missile has indeed exploded when the children were at school, that would have been absolutely disastrous. We are just going to show you here a recent video from a bombardment of Gaza a couple of days ago that led to several injuries. I think it's quite interesting, Romana, that this is happening at a time, and I think this is kind of like another way of looking at this tragedy. This is happening at a time that one Arab country, namely the United Arab Emirates, is normalizing its relations with Israel, and within and I think this is a very, very strong and typical Israeli message when you think about it. just kind of this triumphant Israeli leadership that we are signing a deal with an Arab country, and with the potential of billions of dollars of investments. The head of the Israeli Mossad flew to Abu Dhabi with this big fanfare, received as a conquering hero, as a dear friend, at a time that Palestinians are, basically being bombarded in their homes, in their schools, in their hospitals, in their streets. There is something absolutely tragic about all of this. We know in Wednesday that there were mass protests in Gaza against the US brokered deal between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. Some of the chants included normalization is betrayal to Jerusalem and Palestine. And of course, it was just these moments that kind of bewilders you a bit here, that how could an Arab country, no matter how corrupt, no matter what are the circumstances, no matter how what is their strategic calculations in the region as far as Iran and Turkey are concerned, to actually go this low, to normalize with the Israeli occupation during a time, not any particularly normal status quo occupation times, but rather during a time that Israel is killing Palestinians. We know about the death of that young man in Jerusalem. We also reported on that story. There was the injury of the mute old man, also in the West Bank, and now the bombardment of Gaza, and not a word of protest coming from the United Arab Emirates. And now they are talking about more normalization, including Bahrain, Sudan, and other Arab countries.
And in the beginning, there was a lot of talk about, the deal and the suspension of Israeli annexation plans. But this wasn't true. Like, since day one, Netanyahu said, we are not canceling on our annexation plans. Today, the former U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Jason Greenblatt, confirmed that the annexation plan is only suspended, but it's not canceled at all. And that Israel has the right to do it. So basically, what was sold in the beginning as an agreement between two parts that involved Palestinians that wasn't the case at all, of course.
Of course. I find it really quite interesting how the kind of terminology that are developed in the media so very quickly and kind of define how we understand the situation in Gaza. For example, there is a new term that is now kind of making the rounds, and that is the terror balloon or balloon terrorism. Balloon terrorism. I mean, imagine this scenario where you have a country like Israel, supposedly the strongest army in the Middle East or what have you, dumping this massive amount of explosives and missiles on a civilian population that is already under siege, that cannot escape, cannot go anywhere, that lives in an area that has very little functioning infrastructure, almost no electricity, anywhere between 3 to 4 hours of electricity per day, and that is itself could be in question in coming days if the bombardment continues. They are not allowed to go fishing. They are not allowed to farm their lands. During this time, Israel is doing all of this, yet somehow nobody is using the word Israeli terrorism. In fact, you might not even get away with that term on Facebook. Believe it or not, you might end up having your profile page shut down as we have experienced that ourselves, because that is an incitement against Israel. Well, Israel can use terms like balloon terrorism because kids are releasing fire balloons that may or may not have caused fires in Israel. And I am being skeptical about this balloon issue because we know, and we have reported on this in Israeli media, that some Israeli farmers were setting their farms on fire deliberately for the insurance money. This is why I'm saying may or may not. I'm not trying to be too cynical here, but I am really just, we are reporting what we know, what we hear, what the Israeli media itself is saying, yet somehow Palestinians are involved in balloon terrorism while Israel is not. Now, compare that balloon terrorism with this. Now we haven't really seen similar images coming from Israel with injured people screaming in pain and agony as they are being transported to ambulances. We haven't really seen the kind of devastation that we have seen in Gaza. Israel as a nation is not sitting in rooms like this, no electricity, no fans, no air conditioning. This is something that only Palestinians in Gaza are experiencing at the moment, just this typical image of Palestinian families assessing the damage to their homes, to their schools, to their hospitals, to their factories, to their little shops. This is the typical reality in Palestine, yet somehow, if you look at mainstream media, and forget about Israeli media, that's a lost cause, of course, but if you look at mainstream media in the West, you really get the impression that it is the Israelis who are under attack. The Israelis are merely retaliating. The Israelis are suffering. And it's the Palestinians, those very Palestinians that we just showed you, are the cause of that suffering. How truth can be so twisted is so absolutely incredible. Of course, those familiar with our coverage at the Palestine Chronicle should follow us. We have a live blog from Gaza with the most recent updates, original news coming from Gaza, images and such. Our correspondent there, Wafa Al-Udaini, is keeping us abreast on the situation there. Our goal at the Palestine Chronicle is to speak as less as possible with officials and people in power, and to speak as much more as possible with ordinary people. Just people in the street, fishermen, ordinary Gazans who are really feeling the brunt of the Israeli bombardment at the moment. That's what we really try to do. This is our objective at the Palestine Chronicle, and we try to keep to this objective as much as possible. So we urge you to continue to follow us on the Palestine Chronicle. We are going to keep you updated in the situation as it develops. we are going to leave you with few images before we close off. For now, we are going to be back as soon as we have more updates. In the meantime, please go to PalestineChronicle.com, read our news, share our content as much as you can, and stay updated on the situation. I also would like to thank in Italy for her contributions, and would like to thank also especially Wafa Al-Udaini coming to us from Gaza and allowing us to reach and access the voices of ordinary Palestinians in the Strip, and we will be back with more information for you. Thank you for listening.
أبوي كان راح جدة ولا أخويا، وبيوتنا خربت البيوت.
نطالب يعني بوقف العدوان، كفي مآسي لقطاع غزة والحصار الموجود، وبنطالب يعني تحقيق دولي على كل الجرائم اللي بيستهدفها العدو. يعني أول امبارح استهدف مدرسة الوكالة، إيه الذنب المدرسة الوكالة؟ يضرب صاروخ استطلاع فيها حوالي 1500 شظية، إيه الذنب المدرسة؟ أطفال فيها.
إحنا بنطالب طبعا الأمم المتحدة إنها يعني تجيب لنا حقوقنا إحنا كمدنيين، توقف معنا إحنا كمدنيين، إنه إحنا ما لناش ذنب يعني في اللي بيصير فينا، وإحنا ناس آمنين ما لناش في أي شيء.